I'm actually here on Facebook Live today. I'm Claire from Inspiratrix Yoga, and I'm having one of those Friday evenings where I have a chat to one of my yoga teacher friends about all things yoga. Because, you know, most of the time we're kind of going to classes and we're stretching and we're moving and we're breathing and we're in that experience of the body and in that experience of yoga practices. But sometimes it's nice to take a sort of step back from that and just consider the practice of yoga. And for me, yoga is something that has, you know, even in the 20 years I've been doing it, I've seen so much evolution and so much change in terms of all the different things that people do that they call yoga. And so many different options out there that people are doing, from kind of ultra spiritual, very meditation focused yoga to kind of like power yoga, where it's just all about the sweating. And everything in between. So today I've got my friend Lou Blue with me. And Lou is actually based in Belfast these days, though I met her around the East Midlands when I was attending training at one of the studios over there. And Lou is the founder of Sober Yoga, which why don't you just tell us what Sober Yoga is, Lou?
Well, Claire, it's great to be here. It's good to see you. From Wales to Northern Ireland, and what a week. I've had a good week. I've been doing lots of movement and physical stuff. My body feels tired, but it feels satiated. Want a better word for the movement orientation. Yoga, sober yoga. I suppose firstly I should announce that I'm a recovering addict. I've been in recovery for over 11 years. 2019 was a challenging year, where there were two kind of evenings where I was challenged. Sober yoga is my recovery. It has been my recovery. Sober yoga is in development. It's moving, it's growing, it's adapting, it's orientating, and it's kind of a little bit of a fusion. Actually, it's a fusion of my own experience as a recovering addict. It's a fusion of the disciplines that I've kind of gone into in sort of the yogic practice, and also kind of my movement within and around sort of the Buddhist orientation, and also NAAA, you know. So there's been a combination. There's been a combination of adjunct of creating sober yoga, and I've also worked with Y12SR. So I'm a leadership trainer with Y12SR.
What's Y12SR?
It kind of incorporates the 12 steps as well. So there's that kind of amalgamation. Sober yoga really is a body-based, somatic, body felt sense experience in active kind of movement state. So
if you were to think about some of the if you were to think about some of the specific practices that have really helped you, kind of, can you give us some examples of what they would be?
Ooh. Yeah, I mean, I started practicing 20 plus years ago. I was still using, actually, and I remember hitting the mat, and I remember, it was so hard to get onto the mat. It was so hard to actually get onto the mat. I was living in London. I was working sort of Mayfair, Belgravia. I was doing horticulture. I was a functioning addict, so I just fell upon yoga, and I went to a class. It was extraordinarily hard to get myself there. I had to get past all these people that looked confident and comfortable with themselves and had all this energy and sort of exertion, and all seemed to be really, really happy. And me kind of squirreling my way in past the kind of reception desk, got onto the mat, bang. The whole kind of experience outside and all the weight of everything about how I felt about myself, my addiction, the repetitiveness of addictive behaviors, the shame around that, kind of just disappeared. I didn't know what was happening at the time. I couldn't put a name or a kind of a cognitive thought or an explanation. All I knew was that I needed to get to yoga. It was a drive. I had to go. There was something that was just taking me to this physical place where I could just touch base.
So for you, was it very much the physical practice that was the gateway into something?
At the time, absolutely. I recognized that I had legs. I recognized that I had arms. I recognized that I could feel these kind of these components in my body. I mean, this is, again, it's kind of reflecting back, but you know, I was kind of unconsciously observing. You know, it's kind of it's kind of almost like an instinctual thing, I think. You know, if I look back, yes, I was pushing myself extraordinarily hard. It's probably re-traumatizing myself in a way. You know, it's kind of a really tough class. Well, I used to go to Bikram yoga, so it was very, very kind of rigid, very directional, very basically.
It's also hot and sweaty, isn't it, Bikram yoga? It's in a heated room and it's very type A.
Yeah, a lot of washing as well. I mean, like loads of washing, like loads of towel washing. Yeah, where do you hang everything? But yeah, so yeah, I wasn't present. I wasn't present. My practice has changed. It's transformed.
Because I know that you often use the word mindful yoga to talk about what you do now. What is mindful yoga? If you were to define it for somebody who'd never done any mindfulness or yoga.
Yeah, mindful yoga is kind of there's in the activity of moving, so incorporating yogic shapes, forms, asanas, you're kind of actively, you're being mindful of the movement and any sensations that may arise. So sensations that may arise, and that's it in its simplest form. You know, you're kind of mindfully being aware of the movement of your body in the present moment. So I did my 200 hours with some Buddhists who very cleverly and uniquely offer kind of the Buddhist element, specifically mindfulness, and the kind of the pattern of kind of just the observation. I mean, it's kind of, rather than sort of observing the mind, you're observing your body. That really is it in a nutshell. So, you know, there's you learn to experience the nuances. There's a continuum of nuancing. You could perhaps say delicacies, familiarity, which can ultimately kind of just help you inquire about yourself, your inner self. You know, I think in yoga there's a lot of present day expectation on how you look externally, you know, to get approval or love, or to be of value, to be worthy. You need to have this external presence, and it needs to be in this shape, it needs to look like this, otherwise it's wrong. And bodies, each and every one of us is uniquely individual. How can we look like one whole thing? I mean, yes, there is a safety element, and of course it's a very, very it is part of the tradition of yoga, but there's so much more to it, isn't there? You know,
I really like, we've had a lot of conversations about like the felt sense, haven't we?
yeah,
And for me, that seems to be a very useful way into yoga and into an experience of yoga, because it doesn't start from a requirement that you can do that you have a particular level of physical ability or a particular level of flexibility or whatever it is that you kind of think yoga's about. It's just like, can I feel my body a little bit more?
yeah,
Can I feel what's
yes,
going on today?
yeah. And isn't that so? It's such an amazing thing to be able to tap into. I mean, you can do it anywhere. You don't have to be in a yogic shape, you know. So it's kind of like you're enabling yourself to be more intuitive and come back to your instinct, or understand what your instinct is um, drawing up for you. You know, that's kind of emotional state. Um, you know, there's kind of lots of positives. Um, you know, we're human, we fall into patterns, and a lot of those patterns are very, um, very unhelpful. They're unhelpful, and there's you know there's reason for that, isn't there? There's kind of what may have happened to you, just intergenerational, something that may have happened to you, an event, um, and you know, as we begin to learn a little bit more about that inner sense, that felt sense, we're able to make more choices. You know, it's like capturing, it's like a capture, which is really no different to perhaps noticing the mind, you know, and just kind of working with, you know, still to this day, you know, I have to work on trusting myself, you know, um, and not, you know, and really just, you know, not having necessarily a conversation, a cognitive, you know, I don't need to have a story attached. You know, there's something very primal and instinctive and intuitive about sensing what's going on inside your body. Your body can signal that to you. You know, I mean, when I was using, I'd bump into things. You know, even when I was kind of coherent, you know, I'd bump into things, hurt myself, and I'd be like, how? I just wasn't in my body. I wasn't in my body. I wasn't present. So it's, yeah, it's, um,
It's a powerful thing, isn't it, sensing?
yeah,
I mean,
yeah,
for me, I always think that kind of sensing the physical is just such a brilliant gateway into sort of everything else. So whether then it stays with observing the physical, or whether then one's kind of observing emotions, or even stuff beyond that, it has to, for me, it has to come in through the physical. But presumably, I mean, one of the approaches that you've worked with is trauma sensitive yoga. What's your sort of understanding of how we can work with trauma through yoga, or help release trauma, or understand trauma better?
trauma is, it's, I mean, in a sense, you know, 21st century, there's a kind of a spectrum of trauma within our existence today, I guess, you know, but that's a different kind of chat. But it, you know, trauma to me, it's like there's kind of there's a there's a stuckness in the body that hasn't been able to be released, and it's in conflict. You know, it's kind of, it's almost, you know, you've been put on pause, and the pause keeps repeating on an experience of the traumatizing event or the events that happened. And somehow there's an element of needing to press play and learn how to experience the events ahead in a experiencing it physiologically, like sensations wise, from in a kind of it needs shifting. There's kind of like it's like a ball of crapness. I mean, trauma sensitive yoga really is about feeling. You're then able to sort of start to make choices, and from those choices you can put those choices into action. So for instance, if I was to get a rush of energy or this kind of tightness in my chest, for instance, and throughout my life not really being able to have a choice about that trauma event that has been stuck in my body is playing out again, even though it's not relevant to the event that I'm in at the moment. So being able to capture or just sort of feel sense back into that in a safe environment and in a non-coercive environment, and to have the space to kind of just move and tune into that in your own time, in your own capacity, at your own pace, and take self-agency for yourself and the movements, and sort of work with the choices that are then available to you, so you can then put that into action. And from that action, you're kind of re-empowering yourself. So yeah, there's an inner wealth of being able to take your own self-agency and kind of slowly break through those kind of the old traumatizing events that are kind of still protecting you in a way. You know, there's a reason why that the overwhelm, it's like I always think of it as a ball of like a ball of dust going over the sort of American desert or something. You know, it's kind of just there's nowhere it needs to just it needs to sort of move out spatially, you know. And yeah,
it's interesting whilst you're talking about that and that need to reclaim agency. I mean, I'm wondering how you feel about, we've seen this big transition over the last year and a half where so much more yoga is now available online, which there are wonderful things about and not so wonderful things about. But I mean, that question of kind of, you know, feeling like you've got more agency, more choice about your own practice. Do you feel that's kind of easier to do in an online setting, or I don't know, what's your experience around that?
It's complex, isn't it? Because I think there are bonuses, but there are non-bonuses either way. You know, I think language, you know, the kind of the approach with the trauma sensitive yoga is, you know, language is crucial. You know, when you get trauma, your control has been taken away. You're powerless. So really, the space is invitational. So creating a space that feels that you can take ownership. So in a sense, I think that the online has had a good impact for people that feel safer already with their own space and being able to explore themselves in a space that feels more comfortable. They're not necessarily being challenged by I suppose the yoga that isn't accessible for them, you know.
And
or
I guess there's not that same experience of having to walk into a yoga studio or an unfamiliar environment with a lot of people you don't know. You can just set up at home in your lounge. You can choose whether you've got your own camera on or off. I feel, for me, I feel like, you know, people can be, for me as a teacher, sometimes if I'm in the same room as people, people will try harder to be compliant than you know, when they're on Zoom, which is not always a good thing, because I want people to be able to make their own choices. So yeah, I do think there's some interesting things around online delivery sometimes.
I mean, that makes, I think there's less need to prove, you know, it's that external valuing system. It gets dissipated slightly, you know, because actually you kind of know that there's this spatial kind of screen thing happening. I'm looking forward to doing more live stuff as well, though. There's something quite special, of course, about being in the same space, the sort of physical space.
Yes, have you got classes starting in Belfast soon? Have they started?
Yeah, on Monday actually, trauma informed, and I'm looking forward to it.
Where will you be if anyone wants to track you down?
Yeah, I'll be at Maitri Studio, which is central Belfast, Monday nights, 6:15. They're taster sessions. There's more to come. So there's going to be kind of a series of befriending your body series that will work in kind of core structure, I guess. So there'll be 4 to 6 weekly classes that are kind of a course base that will look at varying aspects and elements of befriending your body. So, you know, trauma manifests itself in many variables, of course. You know, there's anxiety, anger, all sorts, addiction, of course. Yeah, you know, compulsive behaviors. I see all sorts
I mean,
of.
and even with, you know, the last year and a half, all the stuff that's come about because of COVID, all the shutdowns, all the isolations, all the changes to everybody's routines and removal and loss of social contact. I mean, that in itself is caused. I mean, I see a lot of trauma in people from what's happened in the last 18 months. I mean, I think I just noticed there's a question posted on the thing. Which was, how have you seen the yoga landscape change during COVID, or even just our human landscape?
Yeah, I think people, I mean, it's been extreme, you know, the kind of the spectrum of, you know, extreme opinions, of course, you know, there's this one side and the other side. I think from what I've experienced and what I've heard from other people, there's been a lot of reflection, which I don't think has been a bad thing. I think nature's like really loved us for not messing it up so much. I've, you know, I've reflected, made a lot of changes in my own sort of behaviors with kind of this driving, and I still do it. You know, it's always going to happen, but it's kind of, again, it's just recognizing the signals, you know, not just from this, not trying to work it out from the brain and, you know, this is what you need to do. It's just feeling it. The body knows. The body knows.
What shifts do you feel like that you wanted to make? You mentioned kind of driving less.
Yeah.
Things that came out of that period of reflection.
I mean, I have a tendency to not stop, you know, so I'm kind of just trying to complete. But what am I trying to complete? I'm not present. You know, it's like, yes, you can complete, but there's really never a completion. I mean, why not to look at things as if there's an end point in a way? Because development really is an ongoing practice. You know, you develop. It's a daily practice. You know, it might not evolve on the mat in a yoga shape or position. You know, it's a strange thing, isn't it? Because there's, you know, there's so, what goes on inside is, yeah, amazing. You know, it doesn't always, it's how it looks from the outside is a nano part of the practice, really.
Yeah. It's about returning to the body.
Yeah,
Wisdom of the body.
yeah, feeling the body.
Yeah. I mean, I know for me, the last year and a half, like, I feel like for me with the yoga, there's been a massive amount of change because I've shifted from teaching people in person to teaching people online on Zoom, and you know, starting to record videos. Like, I'd always thought, oh yeah, I'd like to do videos, but I never had time. And then the last year and a half, you know, recording classes and recording specific courses and just kind of evolving into different ways and directions the yoga can go has been really interesting and a massive learning curve. And I wanted to ask you, because I know one of your projects in the lockdown has been this sober yoga. You've got a Facebook group, haven't you? What's your Facebook group about?
Well, it's I guess it's been specifically set up for people in recovery and are recovering, or actually wanting to recover. I mean, again, that those three kind of tangents off, you know, you don't really stop recovering. And what does that word mean in a way? I mean, in a way, it, you know, it's an intention of wanting to use tools that are beneficial for you as an individual. So whether that's therapy, 12-step, you know, I've used therapy, 12-step, I've used all sorts of things, you know, but it's it, in its simple one-liner, it's drawing information, tools, techniques, and helping people, I guess, become aware of a body-based practice. You know, it's not just about fixing up here. You know, it's combining both and sort of feeling into both and having that a little bit more reliability on the information that the body gives you, your body, the body, their body, and it's kind of where the mindfulness comes in a way. I mean, somatics is noticing, but there's kind of, on top of that, there's kind of, it's not directional necessarily. It's encouraging self-exploration on a body-based practice. So it's exploring yourself on a physical, active, mindful way, and it can happen anywhere. Supermarket, yeah.
What sort of things would people find in your group? Are there mini sessions in there, or posts, or what kind of things do you like to share?
Yeah, there's lots of posts going up there. There's kind of been sharing of pictures of me doing yoga all over Ireland, actually, the past month or so. I am just about to launch a 3-month training program, and also setting up some regular classes. It's, you know, it's like quite overwhelming. So the past couple of weeks, actually, I've just gone, you know, I've felt into my body and I've just settled a bit. But it's really exciting. There's so much stuff that's going to be coming.
Yeah.
And I guess the site really is, the group is, it's information, you know, it's information. You can take it or leave it. It's a space that is specific to yoga, body-based, and kind of, in a way, it's educating and re-emerging the body as a tool for your own recovery. You know, it's not just fixing up here. you know, so yeah, it's
That
really
way.
exciting.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm excited. We've talked about your project before, and I can see that it's going to be this course is going to be an amazing resource for people who want a bit of support with their sobriety through getting the tools from yoga, the tools from mindfulness, which can be so supportive and so helpful. So yeah, head over to Lou's group. I'll put the link below.
Come.
You're learning about that. Yeah, and for me, like the felt sense yoga is a lot of what we're doing in inspiratrix yoga as well. So I don't work with very specific populations, but for me it's about teaching everybody to feel more, not just the big feelings, but the subtle feelings as well. And that's been, for me, that's become the core of my practice. So yeah, so from everything I do, from weekly classes to videos to courses to my yoga teacher training program, it's for me that's the kind of really sensible, useful piece from yoga, because the external shapes, it's all very well, like people in their 20s and 30s get very excited about handstands and look at this fancy pose, but I'm much more interested in, how can one move skillfully in one's bodies, in one's body, when one's 60 or 70 or 80, or even ideally before that, because we have this human existence and this sort of gift of this wise, fascinating, mysterious body. And yeah, it's a wonderful, wonderful thing to explore, isn't it?
Yeah, I love that. I love that, what you said about it's the skillfulness of finding your own movement with your own sort of body. It's so subtle. It doesn't need to be seen externally. It's for your own daily practice and experiencing. It's wow. It's such a pleasure to explore it in a way. It's kind of, it's subtle, but it's actually quite amazing to be able to just tap in and just go, it can be a tiny thing, it might just even be recognizing that you've got a sore little toe, or that you feel a little bit nervous, or a little bit, or nothing. You might not feel anything and go, oh, I'm not actually feeling anything. So there's no learning not to judge because of the external as well. So yeah, skillful. Yeah.
Awesome. Well,
Yes.
it's been fun talking to you today. Thank you for connecting up Belfast to Wales.
Yeah. Thank you, Claire. It's good to see you, and great to talk to you as usual. Yeah.
Excellent.
Yeah.
I'm going to stop the live stream now. We'll come back and have a look at the live stream post later. So if you're watching this later on and you're like, oh, I really wish we could ask Lou that, then post your question in the comments below, and we'll loop back later and answer any of those that get posted.